Welcome to
Inside the
Message. We're so glad that you are hanging out with us for this conversation. Brother T just gave the message, and the title was Faith versus Faithlessness. Faith versus Faithlessness. And really a great talk. I appreciate the clarity, how succinct you are, how simple you made the topic. And I also appreciate your emotion that you had. Tell us about that. What happens when that happens?
Well, as I was studying years ago, actually, but as I was studying, I got in. At one point, the teaching says, okay, well, at a certain point, as you're evolving, literally ascending, growing through, this conscious evolution, you'll reach a point of tenderness, and it, and it kind of indicated that everybody goes through that, and that it doesn't last very long. Well, I'm here to tell you it lasts a lot longer than I thought it would. But really what it amounts to is tears of joy. I had an experience that you're familiar with that goes back 6 years ago now. And, we go to bed on a Friday night, you went to sleep that night and I stayed up. But the next morning, you could tell that something had changed.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right? And what had changed is I had a spiritual experience. And, I've talked about it a little bit here and there, but, we'll share it at some point. But all I could do for hours, actually for several days after that, but was you were asking me questions and all I could do, you would ask me a question, and then I would get I'll just say download, but I was having a direct communication, and what I was receiving was so profound, so simple, that all I could do was laugh hysterically at your question, because what the profound communication was revealing was the absurdity of the small mind, right? Mm-hmm. And not saying anything bad about your question. I mean, it's just all of this is really absurd. What we think is important is absurd.
Right.
And then, as you recall, I would just burst into tears.
Yes.
I was just laughing hysterically in one moment, and then the very next moment I was crying, just almost as hysterically.
Yes.
And I couldn't function for 2 or 3 days. I was, the term I use is that I was blissed out.
Yes.
I was. And she thought it was great for a few hours, but then after a while, she's like, oh my God, you're not going to be able to function in the world,
Well, because part of the message he received was that we had just gotten me down to Tennessee from Toledo, and all settled in, and the message that was as clear as a bell to him was that we were going to move back to Toledo. And I knew something had happened, and I trusted it. I really knew we were going to move back to Toledo just based on that. But because of his alternating laughter and giggling with the tearfulness and the tenderness, I thought, oh my God, we're not going to be able to get anything done. I thought, I'm going to have to move us back to Toledo all by myself. Yeah. And so...
which was true.
So it was, it was, I would say, a line of demarcation, because since that time, I think that you have had a certainty. And I think for all of us who have had a spiritual experience, and I know that folks who are listening have,
Absolutely.
It's something that happens, and to let it be something that does change your life. And gradually over time, you return to
Faithlessness.
no.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. And but there's always been a seed of certainty, and I think that that certainty has even been off-putting, to myself and to others, because you are so sure
Right.
about your experience, the portal that you went through, and the connection that you had, and the tenderness. And you always do clarify for me that it's not of sadness, that it's of
No,
joy.
it's absolutely gratitude.
Yeah. And so I just thought so when you were speaking today about faith versus, faithlessness, that kind of was conjured up for you, that tenderness. And actually it seemed a little prolonged to me. And I always know that in those moments you're having, that connection. Yeah.
It's really, everything is vibration, and so it's really energy. It's a feeling. It's recognizable. It's like a song, or it's like a tone. It's a sound, if you will. It's recognizable. I mean, I'm using those as metaphors, but it's recognizable in those ways. But for some time after that, I felt like I was losing the connection, because it stayed with me I woke up the next day and it was still with me. The dialogue, the conversation, the connection that we talk about here. How did that happen? It happened, and I'd had, we all have spiritual experiences, and those, at least now I understand that those spiritual experiences are confirmations that you're moving in the right direction. You're following the right pathway, and you'll get these confirmations. And I'd had several prior to that, but that one was that one was actually a real connection, a conversation with Spirit. I was having thoughts, as I said in my message, that you ultimately start having thoughts, and you realize that's not my thought. That I'm here, that I am having thoughts that are not my thoughts. In other words, they're not the thoughts of the small ego separated self. And for a while, I really thought I was losing it, and I couldn't get it back. And now I realize ultimately it's so subtle, that the ego is always trying to override it, but it's not lost. And so when I feel it, when I feel the connection vibrationally, and sometimes, in a download or conversationally, things come through, and I know that's not my thought. And so I'm feeling it now. And so I feel that feeling, and it's a feeling of tenderness, but it's a feeling of gratitude, deep and profound gratitude, because it's a feeling, it's love. It's love. So, and sometimes my ego self wants to apologize, and and the world looks at that. I had been raised in the South, in a traditional. My dad was pretty tough guy, or wanted me to think he was, and so you're not allowed to cry. Men aren't supposed to cry, and all that shit. Did I didn't say that out loud, did I? But that's bullshit. It really is.
You said that out loud too.
I did say that. But we are these divine beings of love, and when the ego tries to control that or manage that, it gets all wonky. But I'm just full of gratitude, and I love you, and I love you, and I love you. You just start loving everything, and that's where the laughter comes in, and the ridiculousness of it all. Yeah. But then the deep gratitude. Yeah, that's what that's about. So, well, thanks for asking that, because I'm sometimes a little, I don't know. I don't want to say embarrassed. I'm not embarrassed. But I know it's not what the world expects, or the world may have its own judgment, but that's what the world does. That's what faithlessness is.
Well, and I think that it's interesting, because it tends to happen when you're doing what I believe your purpose is. And so, which, the purpose for all of us is to extend love, is to be that embodiment of love.
Absolutely.
But we all do it in different ways. And one of the ways that I know that is your gift and your passion and what you enjoy is when you're teaching and when you're speaking and when we're in groups when we've hold classes, when we're in groups with our classes, we have that sense of intimacy. I notice that is when it often
Absolutely.
will occur. And so the message, I believe, is to follow your bliss, follow your purpose and your passion, and to trust that that we are guided, and that does dovetail into faithfulness, because
Absolutely.
that whole connection occurs when, and one of the realizations I've been having is that absolutely everything in spiritual teaching and practice begins with right identification, that, and what we practice today with the Holy Instant and with the conversation about faithfulness and faith is that it is all the bedrock of that is all connected with that connection with higher self. And, so one of our taglines with True Thought is discover yourself. And the faithfulness that can only, the true self only emerges and occurs when we sidestep the ego, the bloated aspect, the aspect that is bloated and forceful, and sidestep that for the grandeur and the beauty and the divine intelligence that you said it's not my voice, but it is my voice.
Yes.
Of connecting with higher self.
Yeah, there was a moment in the conversation I was having in that experience where the voice literally said, at some point you have to realize I am you. Because I was seeing it as something separate.
Right.
Right? Because I was still coming at it from my illusory mind or my experience of the world of separation, that it was something outside of me. It was available to me, but those weren't my thoughts. In other words, but they were my thoughts on a different level. Right? And that's ultimately what this is about. And I was trying to bring that out in the inspirational message today, that's what the journey is to return to a connection. The realization that it's available, number one, is a big step. Not to be afraid of it, because that's been indoctrinated into us to be afraid of being possessed or whatever. That can't happen to you, right? Your ego is so good at drowning out everything else, but also ultimately to become available to you because you're practicing meditation, and you're practicing quietness, and you're listening, and you're recognizing that it's available to you, so you're making an effort. And it takes effort, because the ego is very busy in its effort to keep us distracted. And then when we do get the connection going, it takes, well, in my case, it's been years of continuing to be able to try to dial it in and refine it. But it's just love, and it has no big agenda. People think, God wants this to happen. God is love. Love has no agenda. Love is, really, right? So we're small-minded is wanting all these things, but that's faithlessness. Faith is just allowing what is to be what it is today. Can we practice that today, really? To just allow what is to be what is without judgment. And I know from your spiritual training and all of the hard work that you've put in, you taught me that there was a practice to prayer. And I think it was at one point you were teaching a class that I was involved with you in, where it was like a 5 steps, right? It's all the same in that sense, because it's leading us towards being connected with spirit.
Right. So the very first 2 steps is to recognize, which means to remember again, God, source, love,
Right.
all that is. And the second step is to unify yourself with that.
Right.
And so, and from that point, from the point of unification,
When you say unify, what is that? Can you?
like unify my awareness that God and I are one. So here, the first step is recognizing and remembering again source, remembering again the power and presence of all that is the Creator, the one power, one presence, one life, one love, of all that is, and many of us call that God or spirit or being, so you remember the qualities or the aspects of what God is and all that is, so there is nothing else, which really does take us back to the Course in Miracles, that God is love and that is all that there is and that everything else is illusion. And so, when we turn away from conditions and we turn to God, to spirit, that's an act of faithfulness. And then the second step then becomes that, well, if God is all that there is and God created me, then I must be of that. I must be one with it. And that's where the principle of oneness comes from. And so that's what unification is. And so once I unify my heart and mind with that power and presence, that right there is the foundation for the prayer that we're talking about. But it also is the foundation when we look at A Course in Miracles for the Holy Instant. It's also, the foundation for every spiritual teaching that I know that ends up moving towards a mystical experience of that oneness. And so that is an act of turning from fear, which is faithlessness, to faithfulness.
Or we can just say faith.
Yeah,
We
from fear
to
to
keep
faith,
it, just to kind of keep the distinction clear. It's faith and faithlessness. So when we're having faith, we're joined in union with, we're turning to God. We're joined in union with our higher self.
And the truth is that we are always practicing faith. It's just what type of faith are you practicing? Are you practicing a faith that is true, that is based in truth, or are you practicing a faith in fear or illusion?
Well, this teaching, I want to emphasize that we're not practicing faith. We have been practicing faithlessness.
Right.
And people say, well, I'm practicing faith. But when we think we're practicing faith, we're being faithless. Because it's thinking, right?
Right.
So faith is simply no thinking. And how many people are practicing that? Right? So the point is, and I'm trying to be very distinct here, just to draw the line of demarcation, because it is one or the other. There's no in between. You can't be in both states of mind or consciousness. And people, I'm going to go to the church and I'm going to practice faith, but I'm praying and beseeching or whatever. I'm still in my thinking mind, right? Faith is relinquishing all thought and literally ignoring it, which is the only thing that we can do that it can't defend itself against. And now when I'm in faith, I am channeling. When I'm practicing faith, I'm channeling. I'm joined. Period. And when I'm practicing anything, or when I'm not doing that, I'm practicing faithlessness. And so I would argue, or make the distinction, or the argument in my own personal life that I never practiced faith until I actually began to realize what A Course in Miracles was teaching me.
So A Course in Miracles is an absolute teaching. It's kind of the binary proposition, of like the old computer systems, the binary ones or zeros. Everything is a one or a zero, and so everything is either truth or illusion.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And so
it's faith or faithlessness.
Right.
So when I'm practicing the Holy Instant, and I was talking today about it being the two-step. When I'm practicing the Holy Instant, which I'm joined, that's faith. And we talked about holy relationship, with a group of people recently, and that's really that same thing. In other words, I'm going to God first. Now, how am I going to God? I'm in union with my higher self. So it's expressing as me, or the me that the world is seeing is expressing as the true self. So when Jesus said, "When you see me, you see the Father," right?
Right. So, another tagline that we have is true thought, no thought required.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying is, releasing or turning from the thoughts of the ego, which are really no thoughts. I mean, they're not valid.
Yeah, they're all lies, really.
Right. So what I was saying is that we're always practicing faith, and I understand your distinction here, but if we have levels of consciousness, there are between the absolute and illusion, right? I think in our human experience that it's sometimes gradual. And so when I say that we're always practicing faith, it's the same muscle in a way that we're just accustomed to placing our attention and our faith, if you will, in faithlessness, in illusion. And so we are accustomed to conditioned experience, and in a way that is practicing a faith. You don't want to go there, I can tell. And that's okay, and that the same attention, that muscle of attention and focus and desire, I'm placing my time, attention, practice in faith.
Right. Well, I think the distinction is that I want to point out is that you use the word intention. Mm-hmm. So we have an intention to be connected, right? We have an intention to practice a spiritual practice, and we're having this intention. And I believe that that's what we can label or call faith, right? But it's an intention. The message that I'm sharing today, I want to make the distinction because faith is when we're connected. In other words, when I'm practicing faith, I'm already there. Right up until the point when I'm connected, I have an intention to be faithful, right? That I'm looking to the non-physical. I'm looking to the invisible. I'm looking to the unseen, and I'm saying it's there. And so I'm setting this intention to be connected. But the distinction I'm attempting to make today, I don't know that I'm doing a very good job of it, explaining it, but is that once I'm in that state of mind, I am being faithful.
Right. Okay. No, I understand. And I think it's a great distinction, and I love the simplicity of it. And I think that just like the word God, or just like, it's been used so much that it carries with it its baggage, so to speak, or a lot of and I think the word faith is kind of like that as well.
Yeah, that's kind of
that there have been so many, so much speak about faith. And I think what you, in your understanding of A Course in Miracles, is really just making it simple.
It is. And I will share with you that, this teaching came from Jesus. This is not my work, right? And it's not Jesus channeling through me. This was Jesus channeling through Paul Tuttle, which is Raj. And this is one of his teachings. And I love to teach his teachings because that's how I was able to really begin to grasp the profound simplicity of this teaching, of the narrative, if you will, of of A Course in Miracles. And we say Course in Miracles, but we could be pointing towards A Cause of Love. We could be pointing towards The Way of Mastery. These are teachings of Jesus as of the last 50 years. All of these are channeled works. But the point is that it's not just the Course in Miracles. It's actually, he calls it the curriculum. Everybody has to take the curriculum. The Course in Miracles is one expression of the curriculum. And what I want to say my intention with True Thought and our discussions of True Thought is to bring that curriculum forward in our unique way of expressing it and sharing it with you. Right. So, but it's the same curriculum, right? We're not really changing the curriculum. We're attempting to, bring it forth in a way that's understandable.
Right. And so it's shifting the traditional concept that faith is the substance of things hoped for, and that we tend to connect faith with specific outcomes or outcomes that we desire to have manifest in our experience.
Yeah.
And what you're teaching today is that no, faith is really so simple. It occurs when we are in that connection with our divine self, the Holy Spirit.
That's right.
And that everything then flows from that, and that we can walk forth then in a trust and even in an allowance of walking forth in faith, knowing that all is well, and that we are guided by, because you did also mention the guidance system, that we each have a guidance system, and that in that connection we are guided so that we are directed and companioned in everything that we do. And so one of the things about the way that we teach this is that the ego makes everything complex, and that things of spirit are simple.
Ultimately,
there's
extremely
a simplicity
Very simple.
and a generalizability that
Absolutely.
And so I think that you've given us a lot to think about today, or not think about today, but truly a practice.
It's a practice.
It's really just
It's
the
a spiritual
practice.
practice.
And so I think that, the commitment to practice that every time it comes into our awareness, every time there's a choice to make, every time there's a feeling of faithlessness, because you can feel faithlessness. It feels like, disconnection. And if we're in the faithlessness a lot, it's depression, it's anxiety, it's
fear
and worry, and
it's also
doubt. Doubt is.
It's also judging and giving things meaning.
Yeah.
Saying, oh, this is wrong and this is good. Oh, this is terrible. We can look out on the world and all those people, those rioters, they have a right to be who they're being.
Right.
Faith is realizing that everything is divine, and it's moving towards an awakening of, we could say, humanity. It's our awakening that's happening, and it comes at the cost of the old. But it's anytime we're thinking or giving judgment that we're just relying on our thinking, as we're practicing faithlessness. Yeah. So it is simple. I think that could be the takeaway today, that this is really simple. And it's a simple practice to just remember, or set your phone, today, every hour, or, and it just dings or something, right? Get a little alarm.
Little reminder. Yeah.
And then you just ask the question, are you there? So that's the connection, right? Just asking that question to your higher self. So you set your phone today and it dings, and when you get that ding, you close your eyes, you take a good deep breath. Don't do that if you're driving. Take a good deep breath. You can do it with your eyes open.
Yeah.
And you can do it while you're driving, but you just turn within and you ask the question, are you there? And you listen. And that's really the hard part, is the shutting up, if you will, the quieting of the mind, right? To listen, because it's so very, very subtle. Truth is available.
Nice. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Shall we practice it?
Yeah, let's
As we
take a good.
close, is there anything else you want to share? Or
No,
say, or
I'm good.
are you good? I just happen to have a bell right there.
Oh, we can do a bell.
Yeah.
Okay, so when the bell rings, we're just going to take a good deep breath, close your eyes if you can, and just turn within and ask this question. Are you there? See what comes up for you. Oh, and another question that I shared today was, what's the truth? Which is also another wonderful question to continue to ask Spirit. And that is literally the practice of faith today. Right? Are we
Yes.
ready?
Mm-hmm.
And that's our practice. And it's really very, very simple. It's simply you connecting with you. And it doesn't have to be complicated at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining us for
It
another
was
episode
fun.
of
Inside the Message. We love you.
We do love you.
Have a
Thank you.
beautiful
God
day.
bless you. Bye-bye.